If you've done it, somebody else has too. You are not alone. Ask for help. Help is available.
I find myself at 38 years old with a problem. And I came to Florence because I wanted it over with. I knew I couldn't live that way anymore. And I just, I'd even done a year in jail, when I got to Florence.
Living with my mom and dad, and I was 33 years old, and I was on a walker, and all of my hair had already fallen out. My kids were watching me kill myself, basically, and so at that point, I got to a place in my life where I knew that I needed some help.
We get married, and I only want to do the recovery thing. I think I can just be a good guy and go to work. I don't want to do the recovery thing 100%. Well, I ended up relapsing a couple of times,
If my parents could have got me sober, or my kids could have got me sober, that's exactly what I would have done, but that just didn't work for me. I had to be in a place that I wanted to make some changes in my life. Surrender. I cannot tell somebody how to surrender. We have a saying in recovery, surrender to win, and that's exactly what happened to me.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please go to aa.org. That's AA like Alcoholics Anonymous .org.
Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, your humble servant, the cute, diggity dog, in the Moran family studio with my lovely wife, Jeannie Moran, and we are joined, ladies and gentlemen, by my old friend, used to be Sandy Ledbetter, but now she's a happy Poole, Sandy and Jamie Poole. Welcome to Man vs. Marriage, the podcast. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as we get started here, I would love for you guys, and Sandy, if you want to start, go ahead. Just tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself, and then we will talk about your testimony. And it'll be really exciting for our audience to get to know more about the both of you. So with that, I'll hand it over to you. Go ahead, Miss Sandy.
All right. Well, thank you to the Morans for asking us to be on the show. We're super excited to be here with you guys. Well, my name is Sandy Ledbetter Poole, and I've been a Poole for almost 9 years now. And we live here in Florence, Alabama. I grew up in Oak Grove, Alabama, and then moved up here a little over 13 years ago and kind of just stayed. So. And what about you?
Jamie Poole. I'm from Athens, Alabama, and I've been in Florence since 2015. And that's where me and Sandy met.
Awesome. Well, that's great. We are now actually, after high school, I went to about a year of college, just so you know, out at Shelton State, and then I went to visit my mom in California, and then stayed out there for about 25 years. So in the process, met this beautiful woman to my right, and we got married and had 8 children, and just had a great, intense and exciting life, and quite a journey that it's been. And we started this podcast after about 10 years of marriage. And, for us, life was just kind of kicking our tail. And so our podcast is about, the journey, and it's about helping people through places where we've been, even helping, like bringing folks on, and your testimony helping, people from where you have been. And so, in 2022, California got to California for us, and we moved to the one place that Jeannie said she would never move to, which was Texas. But we found out that freedom was a whole lot better than California, so we made our way east. And so we've been married. This November will be 26 years, and it's been quite a ride. But just to give you guys a little background on us. So Sandy, if you would, I follow you on Instagram, probably Facebook, but I'm more frequent on on Instagram, but I've followed your journey for a number of years. Time has really flown by fast. It's already been 9 years. It's an amazing. Here comes the decade right around the corner for you guys. But if you would give us a little background on your life and just a testimony about what's been going on for you over these years.
Okay. Well, straight out of high school, I got married, and it wasn't very long. 6 months into that first marriage, I decided that having a child would, fix both of us. By then, I was already having some problems with addiction. And when that baby came home with me, my addiction really started. And it was pretty bad. We had 3 children together. And my last pregnancy, I used my entire pregnancy. And so that's just where the disease of addiction had taken me. And so what happened in that marriage is, those things don't work out, right? And so my husband and I separated. My parents pretty much took the children, and we were living with my mom and dad. And I was 33 years old, and I was on a walker, and all of my hair had already fallen out. My kids were watching me kill myself, basically. And so at that point, I got to a place in my life where I knew that I needed some help. I needed more help than what I was able to do. Like, if my parents could have got me sober, or my kids could have got me sober, that's exactly what I would have done. But that just didn't work for me. I had to be in a place that I wanted to make some changes in my life. And so that's how I ended up here in Florence. I went to a treatment center in 2012, in February of 2012. And I ended up at a sober living home in Florence, Alabama. So I've been sober 13 and a half years, somewhere in there. And so actually the cool thing about that is I created a life here in recovery, and we get the opportunity to help a whole lot of people. So that's actually where I met Jamie, was in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I had been sober for a few years, and then he came to a sober living home here. And so the cool thing about that is, our lives have been transformed. Like, I'm not who I used to be. I always kind of felt on the outside of different types of groups. And, I was the person that could go to church and sing at church and talk the Bible. I just didn't know how to live. I missed that somewhere along the way. And so that's what recovery has given to me, is some really good coping mechanisms, a chance that I learned to give back to other people, to live a life of service. And so that's, Jamie came into the rooms, and there were lots of, young people that we were going out to, we were going out to, different dinners and hanging out and bowling, just doing things that at one time I couldn't have ever seen myself doing and having fun. And so Jamie and I started hanging out in these groups. And so what happened was, a lady had given him a chance to train at her gym. And so some of the other girls were going to boot camps with him. And so they were like, "You want to go to a boot camp?" And I'm like, "I have never worked out one day in my life. But hey, exercise is probably pretty good for you." And so I started to go into boot camps with them. And at that time, I think that what I tell everybody, like a lot of women who are in recovery now, is like, the cool thing is that we were friends first. I think that was the whole difference in our relationship. We do put, God in our recovery first, and then everything else just kind of goes from there. And so what happened, and I'll go ahead and tell this part of the story, is that, so all these girls are doing boot camps with him. Everybody he's just like a brother, and they're taking his cat for a walk. He has a cat that walks on a leash, and they're all going to the park or whatever. So I thought I was safe. And it actually was February the 14th of 2015. And so he asked, it was my sobriety birthday that morning, because I got sober February the 14th of 2012. And so we'd all went out to breakfast, and he was like, "Hey, you want to go to the park and walk Max with me?" And I'm like, "Sure, let's do that." So we went and got his cat, and we go down to Veterans Park, and we're walking Max in the park. So we say that Max was our little Cupid, because that's the first time that he kissed me. He was like, "I've been wanting to do this for a long time." I'm like, so it was just, I say all the time, it was like a friendship caught fire is what it was. And so what was your take on it?
Well, I came to Florence, as she said, in a sober living house. I'm from Athens, Alabama. My parents were both teachers and coaches, so my dad really got me into sports. But from an early age, I felt really good when I was playing sports, but I was actually pretty shy. And when the drinking and the other stuff happened, I didn't feel that anymore. So I really wanted to change the way I felt. So I got a baseball scholarship. I actually over here to Shoals in Florence. Ended up playing for a year. I got hurt, and I go back to home. My granddad had a backhoe landscaping company, and so I started working for him. And I convinced my parents that I needed to go to Alabama to further my education. And I ended up being there for about 7 years having fun. So, but before I left there, the addiction took over, not just drinking, started doing everything under the sun. And, I find myself at 38 years old with a problem. And I came to Florence because I wanted it over with. I knew I couldn't live that way anymore. And I just, I'd even done a year in jail, when I got to Florence. I would do enough to get myself out of trouble, things would get better, and then I would go back to the same stuff. I'd been to AA before, but I always thought I was smart enough to figure a way out, without listening to other people. And when I finally got here, I was just like, just tell me what to do, So I start going to moms, and I think, okay, if I do this, I'm not going to die and I'm not going to end up in jail. But fun to me was like drinking or whatever else. And I thought that all that was over with forever. And I saw Sandy in the rooms, and man, all these people were just really happy. And at first I didn't get it, And I went through moms, and by just not putting alcohol in, some good things started happening for me. As she mentioned, a lady hired me in her gym. I'd been a personal trainer for 30 years when I got here, so I had a lot of experience. And I go to this lady that she interviewed me, and I told her I was at a halfway house. I was actually honest with her. I didn't lie about what was going on, and she actually hired me. So just by starting to do the right things, it showed me that life could get a lot better. So she hires me in the gym, and I'm starting to actually have fun in recovery, as she's saying, going out with all these people bowling and stuff. And anyway, we start dating, and one of the best things that ever happened to me. And we get married, and I only want to do the recovery thing. I think I can just be a good guy and go to work. I don't want to do the recovery thing 100%. Well, I ended up relapsing a couple of times, and I've got almost 5 years now, and you've seen how long we've been married. So we made it through that, and she dropped me off at a detox, which I had been many times before, and I couldn't believe I had done it to myself. I didn't know if she was leaving or what was going to happen when I got out. And when I got out, I just started asking for God's help. I started doing everything they had said. I was like, great, I guess I got to do this thing exactly the way they say to. And I started doing all that, and I'm happier than I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
I went from, what can I get out of life to what can I give?
Oh,
And
yes.
I get to, there's people that I train that I have taught. I'm pretty transparent about what goes on with me, but I send my morning stuff to people that are not alcoholics. I feel pretty lucky to be a recovering alcoholic because I get to learn how to treat these people better on a daily basis.
Yes.
It's like, we go and do all these crazy things and we figure out a better way of living, So, fast forward to now, man, I actually love Alcoholics Anonymous, and when me and Sandy first got married, I loved all the people that I was around, but I was like, they're just a little over the top. They're a little too much into this thing. I don't want to go to a meeting tonight. I want to watch the Braves. So, but yeah, it's just been being here in Florence and getting to be a recovering alcoholic has saved my life. So I hope that rounded it all up to this point for you guys. And I'm a little nervous today. So.
Oh, well, if you're nervous, it's not showing. I think you both did a great job of talking through where you've been. And first and foremost, I want to honor you guys, the both of you, for your willingness to be transparent, because I think too often people suffer in silence and try to make it look like they have no problems. And so what that seems to do is it seems to multiply the problems because you feel like you're alone and that no one could possibly know what it is you're going through. And there is, to me, there's a significant amount of relief in knowing that there are people out there that sort of know your plight in life and where you are. And most recently, I was up in Idaho, and my father-in-law is a recovering alcoholic for 46 years.
I'm a year older than him.
Yep. It's his, that has been deemed his new birthday. And so, Jeannie's 1 year older than her dad. But he asked permission for me to sit in on some open meetings, and they were web-based meetings. And I sat in there, and just to tell you, I was shocked because it's everyday people that, just looking at them on the screen, you would think they have everything in their life together. And I was kind of taken back by their willingness to share and to put community together, to be open, and then to offer support to each other. Everybody doesn't look the same in there. It's a blend of different lives. So I know that's really long-winded, but I'm just so thankful for you guys to come on and talk to our audience, give us an overview, of your life and your journey. And honey, I'll open up the floor to you. If you have anything you want to say, or, any comments or questions before we move on to the next phase of this.
No, I'm gonna let it go for a minute because I figure there's more to this that you're about to bring about. So.
Okay. You got it. I'm just going to try to adjust the audio a little bit too, because in my 47 years, my hearing has gotten a little dim, unfortunately.
It might have something to do with the 8 children, but we'll leave it at that.
That's a fair point. I do have a lot of daughters, and they be like it to talk. All right. Well, that's no. So what I'd like to do is, you talked about a few things that I really am interested to kind of expand on a little bit. First thing is, one of the first things I saw, was this training regiment, at least what Sandy posts online. And I think last time it wasn't long ago, or maybe it was a couple years ago, you guys, have a pretty impressive gym maybe at your house, in your basement, or wherever that is. So could you talk about, Jamie, the role that training plays in your life, because you're still actively a participant, in working out, based on what I can see. So what role does that play as a support in your life as well?
Well, it allows me to do the thing that I love doing, and the person that I looked up to most in this world was my dad, and I saw him coach kids and go out of his way to do anything for them. He he wouldn't put up with any mess from any kids, but he'd tell them 4 good things for every bad thing he told them he was doing, that they were doing. And, he didn't make me play sports growing up, but if I was going to do it, I was going to do it to the best of my ability. And I actually loved playing. He didn't make me play. And, when I got certified I got certified as a trainer when I was 18. So, through all the addiction and all that stuff, it was probably the only thing that I did somewhat to the best of my ability. Now, since I've gotten sober, I saw where I was not doing that to the best of my ability, and I get to help people on a daily basis change their fitness regimen. I had a guy that came in before COVID, and he was about 50 pounds overweight, and he's probably pretty close to a heart attack, and he lost 35 pounds or so, and it's not. I do like working with athletes and stuff, but I've got a little 76-year-old woman that she goes on trips with her friends now, and she can go up and down the steps, and she works in her yard. So I get to help her with functional training. So it's not just, bench press, deadlift, squats, all that stuff. It's stuff that can help her in everyday life, So, and then I'm blessed with owning the basement gym downtown, which really giving me a shot at personal training. And she doesn't own a third of that gym too. The guy that I started training a guy downtown, and really was going to sell her business, and he talked her into coming and own a third of that gym. So
That's awesome.
Man, it's just been a blessing. I was willing to work and do whatever I needed to do, but man, I didn't ever imagine that in going through recovery, the first job I would get would be in personal training, So God's done for me what I couldn't do for myself in that situation. So
yes, indeed.
And as far as the working out and stuff goes, yes, I still love that. Sandy tries to remind me of how many rest days I need and stuff, and it's the first time in my life I've ever been told when to work out and when not to. But sometimes I listen and sometimes I don't. So.
He still has an addictive personality. So I'm like, hey, you're breaking your body down. When are you going to rest? So he still has an addictive personality. So.
Yeah. And that, and the beauty is that once that is redeemed, it can be channeled, into something. You put your energy into something that can actually be a benefit and a positive, and it can positively impact other people, which is a beautiful thing. And I think it's a testament to God, how he can take our brokenness and use that in a way to affect other people's lives. That, our mess, this is pretty commercialized, but our mess can become a message, and it can change the lives of people we come in contact with. And so I didn't actually know that when she's posted about the gym in the basement, it wasn't your basement. It was actually called the basement gym. So that you pulled it off well, guys.
It's in the basement of the largest building downtown, which is what, like 4 floors?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we're talking
the Rogers building.
Yeah, we say it's Mayberry here. Like nothing's open on Sunday. The tallest building's only 4 stories high. But we're in the basement of that building, so very original. It's the basement.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Looks like a great gym. And so, just to wrap up, as far as the personal training side, you to this day, you still find value in challenging yourself physically in order to help you continue to move forward, or what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, I definitely want to find new challenges. I'm fixing to be 50, so I want to prove that I can keep doing things I've kept done in the past.
That's
I want to, lift certain weights to a certain age, and and I actually do CrossFit too with a bunch of guys that are like 20 years old. So
that'll keep you young, or
that's
or
at the
doctor.
Now, I can do okay there, but I walk differently to the car than they do. So.
Yes, sir. I can believe that. It's great to follow you guys' journey. One thing I'd like to talk about. The reason I bring up the personal training, or the idea that you are continuing on um, and challenging yourself, because I believe it's part of the larger picture when it comes to your recovery. And I think sometimes when people think about changing their life, or maybe they are suffering in addiction, they might look at the things they have to give up rather than the things that they can gain. I think even when you speak about church and Christianity, all too often people focus on the wrong piece about what they're going to have to give up, thinking they're going to miss it, rather than all the gain in the upside. And so I'm just appreciative, to hear your take on how physical fitness and challenging your body and training other people, is just a continued part of your testimony. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Um, so you mentioned something else that I think is an interesting point, and there are some couples, that we do some counseling with from time to time. And so you mentioned that you had relapsed a couple times. And so I wonder, Sandy, if you'd be willing to talk through what that was like for you to watch your husband go through those moments, and then how did you find a way forward to not only support him but to continue, this relationship that you guys were building? If you wouldn't mind sharing that, I think it would be wonderful.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So the thing that we learn in recovery is there's a lot of behaviors that comes with alcoholism and addiction. We learn that as an alcoholic, we are very selfish and self-centered, right? And so what happened for me is this man who was so loving and so giving, like I could see behaviors, he started to change. And like I just started seeing it. So I was, talking to my sponsor. I'm like, something's going on. I actually thought like maybe something physically was going on with him. I'm like, maybe you need to go find a primary doctor, get some blood work done. I just like started to see that he was changing. So just like a transformation that I can see in someone when they come into the rooms, I started seeing that change. But here again, love is blind. So I didn't really think that it was a relapse at first. I'm like looking for everything else, like maybe that it could be. And then I started praying. I started praying for God, anything in the dark, please bring it to the light. So funny story. It was actually, I forget who Alabama was playing that day. He had been at the gym that morning and we were on the phone, and I could tell that he was kind of restless and kind of irritable. And he was like, hey, I've got to run into the gas station for a minute. I'll be home in a minute. We got to get showers. Alabama was playing early that morning, I think like an 11 o'clock game. And he didn't hang up the phone. And so I heard the whole conversation with the gas station attendant. And so I say all the time, like, God definitely brought to light what was going on. So when he gets home, I got on my knee, I hung up the phone, and I knew that he had gotten what we know around here as gas station dope. I knew exactly what it was. People are relapsing in the rooms on it. It's illegal, thank goodness, now in the state of Alabama. But anyway, so I get on my knees, I say a prayer. I don't really know what direction I'm going to take. And so I'm in the shower when he gets home, and he knew he had not hung up the phone, but he was trying to fill it out. And he was like, hey, like something, he said something. And I said, I don't know. People know me in this town. Put it in a black bag, because that's what he had told the gas station attendant, and like he knew. And he was like, let's just get through this Alabama game and we'll talk about it, basically. And we did. And so anyway, I really, to be honest, like looking back on it, I let go of some of my own values that I have in recovery. And what we decided together was that I was going to detox him at home. So we were going to get some more of these pills. I was going to detox him, and all was going to be well because he has too many clients. We couldn't let his partners in the gym know what was going on. And later in his story now, he'll say, I thought I was too important to go to detox. And so what happened after that is he bought these ballroom dancing classes that that was the last thing he wanted to do, but he's trying to make good or whatever. And so it was supposed to be down to 1 pill a day where I knew he would be dope sick. He should be dope sick. And we were at this ballroom dancing class, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, he's high. Like, I just knew it. I just knew he was high. So we were going to ballroom dancing class, and then we would go eat, and then we would go to our AA meeting. And we're at Texas Roadhouse, and I just looked across the table, and I said, you're high. And I said, you're going to go to detox or you're going to have to leave. And I said, because at this point now, you're affecting my recovery. So we ate and left Texas Roadhouse, and we came home. He called a friend who works in a treatment center. He gave him a cell phone number to do an assessment. So they did an assessment on him, and the next day I took him down to detox. And so for me, what that looked like was, I have a strong relationship with God. I have lots of women that support me that I'm very close to. We have in AA, you have a home group. And so I have a home group of people that love both of us. And so the next day I take him, what is it, like 4 hours away? Yeah, 3.5 hours away. So the whole way there, I'll never forget, because he asked me the question. He said, you're never judgmental when somebody comes back into the rooms. They pick up a white chip and you just love them. And he was like, so why are you upset with me? And I'm like, because you affect my security. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Them, I just get to love them, tell them that I'm glad that they're here, that I'm glad that they're back, but you affect my security. And so I remember he asked me, he was like, are you leaving? And I said, I'm going to be home, and I'm going to give you another chance. But I'm telling you, I'm not going to live my life this way. And so that's what happened. I dropped him off. I called people in our home group, told them what was going on. They asked what I could do. And I'll never forget, I called one of the guys, the man who actually married us. And I called him, and he said, I said, I'm just calling to let you know what's going on. I'm okay. And he was like, I know you're okay. And he said, you want to know how I know that you're okay? And I said, how? And he said, because you do the deal. And he said, there's a step for everything that we go through in life. And he said, and there's a step for this. And he said, so you just keep doing the deal and you're going to be fine. And so 5 days later, I go and pick Jamie up, and I really didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know if this was going to end our marriage or was it going to make it stronger. And thank goodness, because he started doing the deal, it made our marriage a lot stronger. I started seeing him. I was telling somebody the other day, growing up, like, I do prayer and meditation every morning. That's an 11th step. And, my kids, if they wanted to tell me something, they would leave a note with my meditation books, because they knew that I'm doing that in the morning time. And I started seeing Jamie build that same, what I call a habit, really. Like, we don't do without it now, but he couldn't sleep when he came home. And I saw that he would get up and he would do prayer and meditation. He would go for a run, I remember calling my sponsor one time because he tore his tricep. He had like 2 years when he tore his tricep. But I remember calling my sponsor, and I was freaking out about it. And I'm like, the doctor just called. It was right after COVID, and so I couldn't go in the surgery center. And the doctor called me. He trains the doctor. The doctor knows his story, but the doctor said there's no way he can get through this surgery without some pain medication. And he said, I'm just going to prescribe it. I suggest you go get it. So I called my sponsor, and I'm like, I'm in the drive-through getting this pain medication. and this is what it is, and this is how many there are, and I'm going to hold on to them. And y'all, I watched sweat pouring from him, and he never asked for a pain pill. And what he said to me was, you know, yeah, it's hurting like hell now, but the hell that I might could open the door up to by taking one. The cool thing is that my boss is in recovery too. He's got 25 years in the program. And so I took him, I don't know, about 2 weeks after the surgery was over, I took him to my boss and we went out back and burned him with some pallets. And so he never had to take one. And, you know, that's what that medicine is for. But also we know that it kind of changes this. And not saying that in the future of our recovery at some point we don't have to have it, you know. But I saw that change, you know, I saw that change in him where he's like, he didn't want to give up what he had already, you know, had in recovery, just the chance of maybe. You know, I watched his dad pass away, and, you know, the people that surrounded him at that time, and him, you know, we were on our way home from the hospital, and he was like, how do I keep my mom and sister not to be mad at dad? Like, how can I mean, not to be mad at God about dad's death, you know? And like, so I saw that change. I saw people drive, you know, an hour and a half just to come to his dad's, you know, visitation and to his funeral. And then fast forward a few years later, and I just lost my dad in January. And like, to see that, so it's been a journey. But I'm gonna tell y'all, I tell people all the time, the sobriety that he has today was worth those relapses, because it's a stronger relationship with God, a relationship with people in the rooms. He was always kind of like on the outskirts, you know, and everybody loved him, but he just wasn't all in. So for me, the relapse that took place, the couple of relapses, you know, like when he actually did get serious, it was worth it. So the 5 years he has in November, it was worth the relapse for him to get the relationship that he has with God and the people in the rooms today. Me, I've always been all in. When I got here, I loved everything about recovery and the people that was in it, and I just started doing the deal. I loved giving back. But he was kind of like, he shares in his story. I'm not sharing anything, but you know, he thought he could get sober being married to me, and that just wasn't the case. You know, you have to get sober for yourself, and then all the cool byproducts of that, and the happiness and the peace that I get to see. So it was worth it. And also, I will add that thank goodness there's other 12-step fellowships as well, because I started going to Al-Anon as well, you know, to apply Al-Anon steps. And they welcomed me with open arms too. So that was pretty cool.
That's excellent. That's quite a testimony, you know, about what, you know, your side of how things played out, and you know, you having the courage to continue on, because I don't know any statistics, but I would imagine that there is some effect on the partner when, you know, or on the other spouse when one spouse, you know, relapses in that particular situation. And Jamie, I wonder if you wouldn't mind picking it up, you know, at the place where, you know, Sandy dropped you off, you know, on the front side of that 5-day recovery, and just if you can go back there, or if you can, you know, think of what you were going through, because truly I want you to speak to the people out there that, you know, maybe they are in a place right now where they're in a lull and a relapse, and they're wondering if is it worth it to try again. I wonder if you could pick the story up there and just, you know, talk from your side on how that went.
You know, to me, marrying Sandy and owning the gym and stuff, all these things that I thought I always wanted had happened, you know. But I found myself like I had for 30 years, taking some kind of substance to change the way I felt. And the answer to that is because I wasn't doing everything that was suggested, you know. I was trying to do it Jamie's way, and not doing what they suggested doing in recovery. And, you know, when I come in the rooms, I hear about I got to have a relationship with God or my higher power. God is my higher power. And I grew up in church. I believed in God. So I was kind of cocky with it. I was like, well, I believe in God. I don't have to pray every morning, you know. And my whole life, I was, you know, things that I did, if something happened good, that's what I was patting myself on the back, you know. I thought this hard work, you know, all that stuff, I was giving Jamie the credit, you know. Never gave God credit for any of that stuff happening. So I got in there, didn't know if Sandy was leaving or not, but I found myself I'd been in, you know, 28-day programs, detoxes, hospitals, jails, so many times. And I'm like, life has gotten better. How are you here again? You know?
Wow.
And we actually started having meetings in that detox center. And the thing that happened with me was I knew a lot of that book from just being around, you know,
Sure.
and there were people that were in there drying out that was fixed to do a 15-year prison sentence. They just did not want to be sick before they turned themselves in. You know? And I was like, dang, you know, life has turned around for you, but here you are, you know. And I started actually helping a little bit at that detox during some of those meetings. And when I came out, like has already been said before, I was like, God, please help me. You know, I'd always heard prayer and meditation first thing in the morning. And what started happening is I started asking for God's help with everything I did, not just when I got myself in a mess, you know. And a funny thing, you've asked me about the training harder and stuff. When I want to quit now, I ask for God's help a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
even there, you know, if I'm fixed to do a real heavy weight on the squat bar, not necessarily God help me get this up, but help me to do this to the best of my ability that I've been doing for a very long time. You know, that prayer and meditation in the morning and asking God to go out the door with me when I leave the house, it's like a life or death matter every day, you know, and it has been since I came out of detox. And my life is better than it ever has been before. By including God in everything I do with helping other people, that's the best way we can do things. And it also opened me up to asking for a little more help with other people. If I'm disturbed, I am the problem, and I need to pick up the phone and talk to somebody about it. I
That's
can't
right.
just those little things under the rug, you know, like it's going to be okay. You know, I need to talk to another alcoholic, my sponsor. I got my phone is full of. One time, I can't remember what it was, but something was really bothering me, and I called my sponsor, and he was unavailable. And I called like probably 4 or 5 of my best friends in Alcoholics Anonymous, and within 45 minutes, every one of them had called me back. You know, so that's a pretty good support group. And you know, for anybody that's out there on the fence about the relapse, or you know, just try to ask for God's help and go in there and do it the best you can, and it'll be the best decision they ever make. You know, and what else do you got to lose? You know, I mean,
Sure.
If you're in a detox center or a halfway house or a 28-day program, just try it the way they're suggesting it, because they're not, you know, they're not trying to tell you to do it just to have some. They're telling you that because, man, this stuff has saved millions of lives for a very long time. You know,
That's right.
Some of the happiest people I know are recovering alcoholics. You know, I'm in a men's group on Saturday mornings, and it's a lot of different people in that group, and I get to share a lot of the stuff that I've been through. You know, I just interviewed for a strength coach job at a high school around here, and I don't know if I'll get the job or not, but if anything, I'll be able to help some of these kids when they're going through certain things.
That's right.
Just with that perspective, and everybody that picks up a beer is not an alcoholic. There's nothing wrong with that, but some of us are.
Mm-hmm.
When we are, thank God there's AA and stuff to help people. So.
Yeah, I think that really powerful what you guys are sharing, and I just can't thank you enough. I really have to commend you on the all in. And I think that's the key when it comes to life in general, whether it comes to life, in your faith, in Jesus Christ, when it comes to your sobriety, um, being halfway in and halfway out is not a recipe for success. It's more of a recipe for depression and failure. And so listening to you guys talk about, Sandy, you were all in from the beginning. And Jamie, you finally getting to the point where it's like, okay, I've done this my way enough. And now it's time for me to do it the way. And I know your testimony. I'm very confident that, the story you guys are bringing us today is helping people out there. And as I sat in some of those meetings, and listened to, people talk about what they were going through, the success, at least what I could see, the success was in the all in. And I'd have to agree with you. They didn't have a particular word count they needed to hit, and that's why they put extra words, in the 12 steps. They're all there for an express purpose. And so I'm impressed with the book. My father-in-law actually gave me one of the books to read. He thought, I might be able to benefit from it. And, you guys know this better than I, but, they read I don't know if it was a chapter or just a piece out of, whether it was the 10th or the 11th or the 12th, whatever step it was.
They read a step out of the book. The meetings dad does, they read a step out of the book. They talk about the step, what it means, what it looks like to everybody. And then they'll read a chapter from another book that goes, there's the big book, and then there's another book that goes with it that they work through.
Yeah, I listened to them reading it, and I was thankful that he offered me a copy. I think it can be very helpful, even if you're not in AA. I mean, just the steps that are there, and it sounds, it has the tonality of the Bible, so to speak.
Mhm.
Anyway, just in the parts that I heard. Well, honey, I want to open it up to you before we close out and see if you have any thoughts that you want to share, and then as we begin to wrap this program up, Sandy, I would love for you to talk to you, 13 and a half years ago. Jamie, I would love for you to take a minute and talk to the you 5 years ago that may be listening to this program around the world, and, just let us know what you would like to hear. But honey, just real quick, if you have anything, I want to open the floor for you.
I actually have a question, because I know there's a couple people that we work with that have gone through the relapse part of this. And I grew up with an alcoholic father, but I was a year old when he got sober. So I know the stories of what his life was before me, but I didn't experience that person. My dad to me is very different than my dad to my older sister. She saw some of those things. I did not. So, but I remember my dad talking about how the reason he would go back into something was because something triggered an old emotion, an old feeling. Like you were saying, Jamie, that you had everything. You had your wife, you had your job, everything was going good. And I don't know if you can pinpoint this or not, because I'm thinking of people that we coach with. One of the things that we work on is being self-aware. What is it that you're feeling? What is the emotion that triggers that response to say, you know what, if I had a drink right now, I could feel better about this? Was there something at that time that you can remember going through that maybe just made it where you went back to an old habit to fix it, rather than, because you said everything was good, but obviously something wasn't if your mindset goes back to that. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that
It
right, baby?
does. I think that I quit being grateful for the place I was in.
Oh, wow.
You
you
became
know.
complacent. Okay, I got
Okay,
that.
so I'm training people, and it got to be like, oh, so and so's coming in. I don't want to train her. Not today. I'm grateful for every person I have, and
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
found myself not being a great trainer again. Because I started wanting to change the way I felt. I wasn't. I was just kind of complacent. And not. I think when we get complacent and we quit working at things, and that's the best way I can describe what happened. And
No, you're
I
good.
was
You're
in
good. I get what you're saying.
a gas station one day, and a guy knew that I owned the gym, and he said, "Hey, you want to take? I'll give you this for energy." Well, I knew it wasn't for energy. I knew had a good idea of what was fixed to happen, and it made
Mm-hmm.
me feel like I was taking pain pills. And I was off to the races. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if I'm not, something goes wrong, run into the gas station. Alabama game's coming up. I got to make it better. I'm not satisfied with anything that's going on in life. And I'm right back where I was before. So,
That makes sense. I'm thinking of people in particular that we work with, and that makes sense to me that if you kind of get complacent with what you have, or you don't realize the value that's in front of you, then you can devalue yourself and start feeling those old things. That makes a lot of sense. I was just wondering because trying to pinpoint for somebody else why you feel like you need something that isn't beneficial to you. It's very hard to help somebody. They want help, but when you can't help them identify why they want the help or what the actual reason for the addiction is very difficult to be in that coaching position. Does that make
well,
sense?
it does. And I think one big thing that happened too is yes, good things happen for me from not putting in. But I already mentioned not doing this AA thing to the best of my ability. I
Not putting
ended
it
up getting
forward.
asked to sponsor guys. And I was like, no, that's Sandy's. I felt very awkward. I was okay with coaching people because I'd done it for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But once I came out of detox and I started doing this thing to the best of my ability, one of the biggest blessings I have today is to be able to sponsor people and share this way of living.
You think you avoided sponsoring the first time because you didn't want to have to hold somebody accountable for something you couldn't hold yourself accountable to?
Yes, very much so. I felt like a big hypocrite,
That
trying to
makes sense.
take people through the steps when I was not doing it to the best of. And I had one of my best friends was my sponsor. I BS'd him. I told him what he knew. I knew enough to play
Mm-hmm.
along, and I'm Sandy's husband, but I am not Sandy. So there
We
was,
we did a test once when we first started going through counseling. We had to do like a personality test, and I knew how to screw the test. I knew how to make the test what I wanted it to be, so I did. And then they coached me based on whatever that personality test came out to, and I knew that that's not who I am, but that's what you wanted on paper, so I gave it to you. And I came out of it kicking myself because they couldn't teach me something because I wasn't willing to just expose the fact that that's not who I am. That's who I present to people.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was that was an interesting time. And but the fact is that, you know, using that as an example, I think it helps you relate to some of the people that we help
hmm
now, because you're pretty good at calling BS on somebody.
Well, you
Um,
recognize it. Like recognizes like. If you've done something, like Sandy was saying, she saw the patterns in his behavior. She knew, like I know you better than anybody on this planet. So when you're not doing Quincy things, I'm gonna notice it because that's not my Quincy. That's something's off.
yeah.
So when you get in front of people and you're trying to help them, I watched my dad for years because he sponsored several people, and the first thing he tells you is one, get a job so you have something that you value and you appreciate because nobody owes you anything. The second thing he tells you is if you're not willing to work, don't talk to me because I'm not going to put in the effort to somebody who's not going to be honest and put in the work. And he did the same thing. He had to learn to work the steps and put it into play and put it into practice, because my mom would call him, this isn't right. So it's beneficial to me because I can see it and I can call it, but there are still times where it's really hard to approach that because of similar personalities. You're like, I don't really know how I'm going to touch on that one without ruffling some feathers or, getting colorful in how I say things. So it's a little different.
Well, I want to commend you too. As Jeannie said, my father-in-law sponsors a lot of people, but one thing that he does make mention of, and as of late, because this man has escaped death more than anybody I know, and
He's working on Mama's 9 Lives now.
I'm not even kidding. This guy, it's been something else. But he sits in those meetings, and I think he finds a lot of value in it. And one of the things that he finds the value in is paying forward what the sponsors were willing to do for him, because he had kind of alluded to, there are some people that he could BS, but there were a handful of sponsors that would truly take him to task and say the things that he didn't want to hear, and they just didn't care about his feelings. And for his personality, that was something that he needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed his life. I mean, it dramatically changed his life and the course of his life as well. And so sitting in there and listening to him, talk in the meetings and, give the advice. And then when the meeting is over, talking to me about why he gives such advice, you can tell that, being intentional with what you do is a very key part of the program. I mean, I'm just from the outside looking in. And then, the other thing, that it's like the power or the spirit or the law of reciprocity. You're actively sowing into someone else, and those types of things, they don't return void to you. And so it adds that other level also of accountability, which I think is outstanding, because we need those things. Even those of us who have never, had an addiction. I mean, the closest thing I've come to that is was my weight, and I was and still work through addiction with food to this day, and allowing that to run my life. So that's the closest thing that I have, to compare it to. And you have to be intentional. You have to be open when you struggle, and then you need to have those people to speak into your life that say, "Hey, this is not you." And so that's really a beautiful thing about accountability, but about the program as a whole. So I really appreciate y'all's transparency today. And if you would, I don't mind who goes first, but Sandy or Jamie, if this program is heard, around the world. One thing I've learned about marriage is, whether it's marriage in Uganda, Australia, India, or anywhere, marriage is marriage, which is interesting to me. It kind of transcends culture, if you will. And so, there are people out there that may be hearing this program for the first time, or maybe they're a longtime listener and they find themselves in a place where they need help. So if you, just speaking from your heart, don't mean to put any pressure on you, but if you could speak to you of umpteen years ago, what would you say? And I would love to hear it.
I would say ask for help. That you haven't went too far down, you haven't done too many bad things. There is if you've done it, somebody else has too. You are not alone. Ask for help. Help is available. You are loved. That was one thing. I just thought that I had done so many bad things that how could I be loved? How could I learn to love myself? And it is there. That's the main thing, is just surrender. I cannot tell somebody how to surrender. We have a saying in recovery, surrender to win, and that's exactly what happened to me. Is that I surrendered to at that time a treatment center, and it's like, okay, I'll do what you tell me to do. And then I surrendered to the idea of I need some more help than just, a 14-day program. And I surrendered to the idea of getting a sponsor. And I surrendered to the idea of what she was telling me. At that time, I had a strong Christian background, but I wasn't. So it was almost like I surrendered to the idea that it's not a religious program. You can have any kind of spirituality that you want to, as long as you believe in something bigger than you. And like Jamie said, ours is God, ours is Jesus. Like it did bring me back to church, but you don't have. I have sponsored women who are Buddhist. I have sponsored women, you know, who had a hard time coming to believe, and that's okay. Just believe that they believe. Get a sponsor, somebody that you want what they have, and that person who is going to hold you accountable. That is the main thing, is accountability, and somebody who will just love you when you feel unlovable.
I was sitting here trying to just picture the me at 5 years ago and the place I was in, and I think if somebody's in that spot, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there are people that love you, and this is your chance to be the best you can be, but you need God's help, you need AA, you need all of this, and it is such a small price to pay each day for just a better way of living. I was thinking today, the best gift that AA and a true relationship with God has given me is just wanting to do the very best I can at everything that I'm doing, and the stuff that I can't handle and the things that I can't change, I trust God with those things now, and there's not been one time, and we've gone through some things, so in being sober and recovery, that were tough, um, my dad was the smartest guy that I knew with economics and everything. I didn't know what I would do the day that he was not here anymore. And God helped me go through all of that, and I was able to help my mom. And I've seen other people in recovery lose their parents, and they still stayed sober and still doing the things that they were supposed to do. So I hope that made sense. But that's what I would probably say to me 5 years.
Yeah, it made absolute sense. And just, something that stuck out to me from the both of you. It's so nice because you guys is kind of like final words, in speaking to yourself, they kind of harmonize together. And so when I look at it, what stuck out to me is that surrender is a small price to pay, for your opportunity to maximize your life and honor the gift of life that you've been given. And just profound. It made a very big impression on me, and I appreciate you guys for bringing that to the program. Surrender is a small price to pay, for this opportunity at life that that we get to live. And you guys are speaking from an excellent point of view, a part of the journey where there are people out there that can't see light at the end of the tunnel, and in a different way, but maybe very similar. For Jeannie and I, us helping people with their marriage and their life and parenting and just this life, this journey in general. I can't help but think that, we had some things that we had to surrender as well and get ourselves out of the way. And that's one of the things that God has really been teaching me lately, is that if I will surrender my ambition to his good and perfect will. Things in my life may not be perfect, but when you talk about being fulfilled, connected, loved, that's where it's at. It's right there where surrender is. So really, really love that from you guys, and really appreciative for you guys coming on the program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys
thank
for
y'all
having
so
us.
much.
Yeah. Any final words? I mean, we could sit here for another hour and talk about how disappointed we are that Alabama didn't make the
Don't
trip to
rehash that.
Tallahassee.
Don't rehash that.
Hey, it's not as bad as the hangovers that I used to have, but it's still a hangover. So.
Yeah, an emotional hangover today.
Yes, it is. We are left in despair, but who knows what'll happen moving
It's just
forward.
worse for you because my best friend's a Florida State fan.
That's true. She is.
So now
She
he's now he's got to eat crow for a day or so, but that's okay.
No,
You guys,
I didn't.
You may think
Hmm?
this is funny or not, but last year after Vandy beat us, I got to go speak in front of a bunch of people 1 hour later.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing that possibly could have happened. But probably on the way there, I probably was not thinking that. But
Yeah, I
That's
can
right.
imagine
that's
that.
another one of those times I had to have God's help. So.
Yeah.
No doubt. And we pray, God, that you would help Kaylin DeVore and the University of Alabama. Whew. Yeah, it's bad shape. We're in bad shape. Well, I tell you what, you guys are welcome on the program anytime to share your testimony about your recovery, and then also to talk about the things that you've learned, in this happy Poole marriage that you guys are building on a daily basis. A true, you guys are a friend of the program. Come on anytime. And we're really, really glad to have you. And in the post notes, I'll put out there, is the most appropriate thing to put, would it be the phone number or the information to Alcoholics Anonymous? Would that be the best idea for me to put that out there?
That's
so
a
that
hard one because there's different locations in various places. So
I think there's a national number. Is there not?
Now
I'll
that
find out.
Yeah, I was gonna say because it's usually like in your area, but there's probably
ask Daddy.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask Google first. It'll tell me.
Usually each area has their own like home office and they can disperse you to whatever's in your area. So, but Daddy might know if there's like a overall hotline or something you can call that could locate a place for you. Nowadays everything's online, so I don't know if the number is still.
Yeah, if I were a better host, I would have this pre-planned. So look at me. I still need to grow.
Just call Papa. Papa knows.
I will commit to putting whatever it may be in the show notes. So if you need help, you know where to find it. All right. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you guys being on the program, and look forward to having you back sometime.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
God bless you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking around to listen to that amazing testimony. And truly, if you find yourself in a place where you are suffering from addiction, surrender. Be bold enough to surrender and know that your best days are ahead of you. And it's after making that decision that you're gonna get on the road to recovery. So I encourage you to do that. Remember, you can use the email address anytime. It's Quincy at MVSM Podcast. Quincy at MVSM Podcast. Email us. Make sure to go to quincymoran.com. Check out what we have to offer there. And that is all for now. Any parting words, honey?
No, I think we covered all of it. I'll see if I can get a hold of Daddy and get some answers for that for you.
You got it. Well, I would sit on here and lament about Alabama's loss for the next 30 minutes, but I've got things to do. So Alabama, get your crap together. All right. For Jeannie Moran, I am Quincy Moran, a.k.a. the Q Dog, and this is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.